Hello, this is Dan Alford, and you're listening to the ARC Specialties Roboticist Chronicles podcast. This is part of our series on Dan's business secrets. One of the biggest costs in manufacturing is electricity, and that's what we're going to go into today. We have a special guest who's going to teach us about the electrical industry, all the ins and outs and pitfalls in buying power today. I think you're going to enjoy this one. Hello, this is Dan Alford, and you're listening to the ARC Specialties Roboticist Chronicles podcast. We're doing a series on Dan's business secrets, and I'll give you the clue. The secret is to surround yourself with smart people. Unfortunately, I'm a scary good judge of talent, so this business secrets series will include guests that have helped me over the years, and today we have very special guests. And this is one of the largest costs in an industrial operation. That's electricity. So it's critical that you select your electrical provider carefully. And the person that's helped me with that is Paul Paris. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Dan. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good to be here.
All right. Tell us who you are, where you are. What do you do?
Well, so retail power sales, that's kind of how I've always framed it.
How long?
We're going on 15 years.
When did they deregulate Texas?
Early 2001, I believe, legislation.
Okay. So few years after that, you jumped in it.
Well, actually, no. I was in commercial real estate. And so when I kind of bridged over into this industry, I saw a lot of opportunity to help customers just because at a very early stage of my career, I saw what business owners had to deal with. And as you noted, one of the largest costs, obviously, other than lease or property purchases and sales, purchases, it was the utility costs, obviously, to run a business. So that kind of piqued my interest, and we went from there. It was probably around 2007, 2008 when I bridged over from the real estate world into the power world of.
And we got to weave Woody into this.
Oh, yeah?
So what was Woody's actual name? She was the Chronicles business writer.
I forgot. Her initials were LM.
LM. And so she came to ARC and did a article here. And then I used to read her work, and she used to use you as her energy expert. I saw your name a bunch of times before I called you.
Yeah, that was fun. Someone actually appreciated what we were doing. So, yeah, my background was more commercial consulting for larger consumers of power and gas in multiple markets. And then, right around 2016, I met my partner, Trent, and we kind of came up with this residential shopping service where it's really hard to manage your home power purchasing when you've got so much going on. So I never focused in the residential world. However, I was very, very clear on the strategies of energy providers on how to make money, let's just call it that. And so we knew there was a service that could be formed where you truly only take care of the customer, period. And the providers have to play ball with us because we own the relationships. So I guess when the word got out, we had some relationships in media, but I think maybe she appreciated it. Maybe it was a breath of fresh air to the industry. And she was great to us. Obviously connected, us in very different ways. But it helped get the word out when you're starting up. Don't really have too much capital to deploy for marketing. And here we are now. So it was a lot of fun. I think she's retired now. It would be great for her to do some pro bono pieces on us again. But we'll see. And that's where we are. So
at least need to get her on a podcast.
Yeah. I think she might like that.
Yeah, okay. Hook us up.
Yeah.
No, Woody was very credible to me. She's a decent person, and that's what we discovered in you. I thought we were pretty sophisticated electrical power buyers, and it turns out we knew nothing. And it turns out there are a dozen ways to screw up an electrical contract.
Yeah.
And I think we've done 13 of the 12. So
No, you guys weren't too bad shape. But yeah, typically the way I've always approached it, me personally, professionally, and then with my little group before we started our residential service, Real Simple Energy, we always played long game. We needed customers to understand what we were doing for them. We needed them to understand the noise that you're going to be propositioned with other service providers out there, other brokers, other consultants. And honestly, we always let the results do the talking. And I was comfortable with that because I wasn't dabbling in an industry. This is something that we were snowballing, we were growing, we were going to continue to build as we are to this day. And yeah, I mean, we looked at your bills, your contract, and it wasn't terrible, but there's things that just kind of, speak to me as far as details that are left out that can be, in the bigger picture, costly to a business owner. So,
And what rate did you get me?
this was 2 years ago, and today is July 21st, 2022.
Yes.
Can't believe that. 2 years ago, the market was pretty great for customers.
Natural gas was cheap.
Natural gas was dirt cheap, and rates were in the 4 cent, 5 cent range in the Texas zones. In some cases could be a little lower. The averages were probably 5.5s. We were very fortunate to get your rate very low. I'll just, for the cameras, I'll just say in the 4 range to not, make anyone too upset at you. I think as we were talking about, the market has just gone bananas. And so now it's almost 3 times, unfortunately.
Right. And so, the listeners are going to say, hey, I'll take that rate. But you went beyond that. And that's really, to be candid, I could get that rate from your competitors.
No.
But what you did for me was all the small things that I was completely unaware of, like how some people will lock you into rate, but if you use more or less, the rate changes. What do you call that?
Yeah, there's bandwidth provisions, usage variances. They'll call them all these different terms, but they all mean the same thing. Is some providers can give you a really pretty number on paper, but when you look into the details and you look at the type of customer you're dealing with, right? We always match them up with the right product or the right provider. There are plenty of groups out there that can offer amazing rates, but the second you don't use enough power or you use too much,
I can't believe
according
that.
to what they had planned for you, yeah, it's exactly right. So it's, if you're the energy provider, you're hoping that the, let's call it the third-party marketers out there you're working with are doing a good job explaining your products well. It just doesn't happen. And if you're the energy provider, hopefully you are explaining those things to the customer if they have a direct relationship. The market's evolved over 20 years, and the third-party, marketers are the ones who really can kind of control the market now. And we're one of those players, but we try to do the right thing, set ourselves apart when we're not selling price. Because first of all, it's not our price. We are aggregating the top offers from the highest quality providers we would do business with if we own multiple businesses, which I do, not many like you, but we approach the business as if it was our money. That's the only way to approach it. So.
Well, you don't own generators. You don't have solar. You don't have wind towers.
No.
But what you do have is candor, and that's what I really appreciated. And you might assume everybody is a sophisticated user, but they're not. You can rewind back to last year's freeze. How many people were shocked when their variable rates brought them bills that were orders of magnitude higher?
Yeah, that was a pretty terrible time period. Yeah, unfortunately, things like that, we call them events, quote, events. When events happen in the market, they're definitely learning curves that come about. And, when there's services out there like we feel, confidently like ours for the residential side of the business, kind of rises to the top, the value shown even more. And, we did a lot of business during those 60, 90-day periods falling out of the February time period because, people think, I've got the best deal for home or even for business. I don't want anyone to tell me I'm doing the wrong thing. I think that's a normal consumer psychology approach to everything. But when you're a little open-minded or you're just open to have someone tell you good job or bad job, very similar to how we hit it off, we're more than happy to tell people when they have a great deal. And we want to see more of that, quite honestly. We just don't. So, yeah.
Well, there's some sophisticated users and some big companies, I won't name any names, that were shocked by this event last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't. My bills just kept running right on.
And that kind of tails back to the type of products you're purchasing or, certain groups are selling. When there are details left out and there are many, let's call them ancillaries or outliers that can potentially be passed through to a consumer when they could easily just be included in the overall product purchase of power, That is the security. So here's an example. If we were doing your deal, we could have, let's say, got you a 5-cent deal. But on paper, if you were dealing with another shop, they could have shown you 4.7. So that small little spread, most customers want the cheaper deal. That's good. That's great. However, all we want to do is say, please review these options on an apples basis, comparison basis. In our cases, there's never anything left off the table. And others, there are some items that in the grand scheme can be sold to kind of say, oh, don't make a big deal about that.
That'll never happen until it does.
Yeah, if they ever pass through a charge or if they ever do something, it's going to be minimal. It's going to be a nominal fee here and that. Blah. Sometimes that's true, but when there's such a small piece or small difference for peace of mind, and on record in Texas, we could probably look it up. Every 2 to 3 years, we do have a significant event. It doesn't mean our grid is terrible. We actually have the most advanced grid in the country. These other markets mimic what we have built here. Doesn't mean we're perfect. Obviously, February is a great example of that. However, you have all these advancements here. You have very good, for the most part, strong providers that do not go out of business most of the time. The smaller guys are the ones who make mistakes. Sometimes they do, and sometimes it's by their plan too to build a book and sell it.
Sell the company.
That's right. In the provider world, that's like the wink to each other. Most of them know what they're trying to do as far as agendas.
How do we tell one of those guys?
Well, unfortunately, you have to have someone who's been in the industry for a long time to kind of give you their biased or unbiased opinion on things. But for the most part, we're typically right as far as, if there's a new group, they have great stuff out there, but you don't know much about them, maybe don't lock in 2 or 3 years. Maybe give them a short-term shot. But there are other groups where, they have experienced executives, owners that do a good job and typically stick with a specific company or project for 5 to 10 years. You have pretty good faith that they're going to do the right thing by customers, and that's what you hope. And most of those quality providers want to work with quality groups like mine and like Real Simple for residential. So
I know a few crooks. Fortunately, Woody was right. You guys are doing a good job.
Well, thank you.
I want to look at this bill. Before I do that, do you run into manufacturers that are unaware of the fact that electricity used for manufacturing is not taxable?
Once in a while, it's very interesting. Yeah, because I think
Talk
sometimes,
about it.
yeah, in your industry sometimes, you guys are very important to the world, obviously, in society, in civilization, but you have to have, I think people helping you all the way around, and there are probably pieces of your business that aren't tax exempt, but for the most part, there are significant pieces that are. And so it's always important to make sure you're focusing on that if you're going it alone when it comes to the utility, but power bill or anything else. But yeah, it can be missed. And then here's the issue: when you're 2 years into a 4-year contract and you're doing it by yourself, then you go to that provider and you start screaming, "Why am I getting charged tax?" Well, you may have missed a step, and they may have just not really thought to ask you, "Are you tax exempt?" when you were signing your contract. So again, using a consultant or some type of outsourced help that you trust, we can kind of hopefully cross those T's, dot the I's, and make sure on the front end those things are structured the correct way so we don't have accounting headaches down the road. So, but yeah, we run into that sometimes.
That's why I wanted to bring it up, because in Texas, we're pro-business, and one of the things is sales tax on the input products are not taxable if you have a resale certificate, and the power used for manufacturing. But it's not a simple matter. You have to do a power study, right?
Yeah, most of the time these providers are going to need some type of analysis, or if you are the customer, the manufacturer, you have to have that to get your tax exempt status.
So not all of my electricity, the electricity we're using to record this podcast.
That's up to you.
No, that's not taxable. We're not building anything.
Correct.
So I don't know what my percentage is, but I just want to make sure that the other manufacturers out there are aware of this. If you're not, it's something you need to do. Is that a service you provide, or do you have consultants that do the power?
We do our best. We don't claim to be, just like we don't claim to be attorneys, but we also can review contracts to say, hey, these are things you should focus on. Well, similar to tax exemption things, if they're not already focusing or looking at, once in a while we can refer, an engineer here and there to do a study.
Okay, so you have an engineer to do a power study if need be.
We've done that in the past. Again, not me. I'm not an engineer. But yeah, those are things that you definitely, as a business owner, you want to pay attention to.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Our last provider was an electrical engineer. I thought I had the right people, and about a year into it, I noticed that the tax was 100%.
Oh,
And that is, and you are correct, Paul. It is very difficult to get the money back.
it is,
later.
because
So,
half the time the providers are going to ask you to just go to the state and recoup it that way, and that's a fun process dealing with.
it's not cost free.
No.
All right, here's last month's bill. Okay, so we're
Ooh,
it's
great.
100 grand. Typically at Arc Specialties just for powers. But here's what I don't understand, Paul. Half of the bill is you, but the other half has nothing to do with electricity, or does it?
Correct.
What do you call all these other charges?
So yes, we generalize. Pardon me. They are pass-through costs, right? So they're assessed from the PUC all the way to PUC Public Utility Commission, all the way down to the provider level. And when the provider has these costs prorated for all their customers based on size, usage, types of usage called load profile, or load factor, the way you use your power, basically, all these fees, how they justify it, good luck. They are passed through to the provider, and when the provider generates your bill with their supply charge piece, they're pre-purchasing your energy supply, and then they're reselling it to you, they're retailing it to you with, if they make any money, into their rate. All the other charges you see on your bill are passed to them, and by law, they must pass it through to you. So everyone,
So we can negotiate all of these prices.
incorrect. No, you cannot.
Can't negotiate any of
You
them.
can complain and you can waste a lot of time, but you cannot, because again, I'm looking at some of these are gross receipts taxes, miscellaneous. Isn't that fun? We don't really get to know what that's
Wonder what that
for.
is.
There's state sales tax. Everyone has to do that. If you pay it, yours is zero on this bill. Texas PUC assessment. I mean, these are nominal charges, but they do add up to a little bit. But the major pass-through is your TDU charge, or your transmission distribution utility charge. Depending where you live in Texas, that is your utility company. We're here in Houston. Ours is CenterPoint. They're one of the largest utility companies in the country. So they have a very large market to watch. If you're in North Texas, it's Oncor. If you're in South Texas, it's AEP, American Electric Power. Their piece is what it costs, they claim, to transmit the power to your location.
They claim.
They claim. I'll just give you a little background. And listen, this has to do with so many things, but the main thing is, not to get into economics too far, our dollar is not as strong as it was 10 years ago. Or maybe it was, but our charges are higher on this piece of the business.
So you're saying inflation?
Inflation is a big piece, especially as of late, as we all know, Captain Obvious. And then growth. Like you said, we're a business state, and we have absolutely exploded our population, and for good reason. And so when that happens, you have your demand increase substantially. When this happens, you need more infrastructure.
Somebody's got to pay for it.
To service the demand. So you need more power lines, more poles, you got rooftops, you got retail, you have everything coming in.
Not being very specific about how it's generated, are you?
No, we can get into that if you want. But either way, we've got the generation. We do. It's a labyrinth of how they make it all work. But the point here is that we have a lot. I say it every single day, no matter what the news clicks say, what competitors say, what my customers ask. We have plenty of generation in Texas. It's just, do we want to make sure it's readily available at all times, and so that comes at a cost sometimes.
You say that, but I've been looking at the ERCOT website, and they show the projected use and the available power, and they are very close.
Again, during peak times, they will show that, but if you actually look at the last 2-3 days, you got an easy, comfortable pad. You want close is when they project it touching or crossing over, meaning what we're going to use and what supply we may have. That doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen.
So it's not as bad as the website would indicate.
It is when it is. It's not bad now because, again, unfortunately, a lot of people have been called out. People, I'd say groups. And, errors were exposed. And, I call it that The government and the generators had been playing chicken for way too long, and unfortunately, bad things happen. So now they're being incentivized, and subsidies are out there, and when they keep the power on a lot more consistently, then you have tons of supply, whether it's being used or not, and that's always been the argument. Everybody wants to max out their profit, and they don't always want to turn the lights on when no one's in the room. Well, now we're asking them to keep the lights on in the room when no one's in there, but that's how we know at least we'll have enough, because we have so many other supplemental pieces of the supply industry that aren't dependable. And I think we all kind of understand, hopefully, what I'm getting to.
Let me read between the lines. So what's the quiet part here you're not saying? And so you're saying they're incentivized now to not have a brownout or blackout.
Right.
And I was curious, do you feel like they were incentivized to run the rates up like during the ice storm before?
No,
something changed.
That is an emergency peak event.
That's just life.
Safety net. Yeah, that was law. That was everyone agreed to and passed. Years ago, as far as our real time peak cap prices, when all of a sudden we lose a lot of supply and demand spikes, they technically have law backing to charge these crazy prices.
And I'm in. I'm a free market capitalist.
Yeah.
When something's scarce, you raise the price, and guess what? Everybody conserves.
Right.
Why is that?
Well, they conserve because obviously they understand that, number one, we could probably all do a little to help, and I think that's hopefully the biggest push with Texas. What's going on now is it's not conserve when someone tells you to conserve. Is if you feel that you can. I think personal responsibility or business, responsibility is how you affect your own power bill. I mean, again, we're supposed to be like independent and free thinkers and doers in this world, in this country, but you can't have everyone always tell you what to do, because you'll just be clueless most of the time. I walk out of the room, I turn the lights off. I've been doing it since I was 12 years old. I mean,
it's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do. I mean, listen. Yeah, I don't know. I can keep going, but it's we're in a good shape now. I think the market has overcorrected as far as our prices currently this month specifically.
I've got a chart right here.
Yeah, summer aside, we've already seen them kind of go haywire in May. They came down. We thought they would continue to come down, but now because we're in the heat of summer, and obviously for viewers, we're kind of dealing with drought situations now, and no moisture, no rain. Obviously clouds help huge, but it's just hot days. But again, if you listen to the noise, to the media, this is the hottest it's ever been. It's just false. I think our hottest days were like 11 years ago.
I was there.
Yeah, well, I think I was there. I don't know what I was doing. But I was probably getting started in this business.
Mm-hmm.
Summer is always very active, and everyone always has their theory on what's going on. But I've been fortunate to kind of always try to read through the lines and focus on the high-level things: supply, demand, trends, and history being your best guide. So,
well, back to my bill. Okay, so half my bill are the ancillary pass-through costs that you tell me I can't do anything about.
Right.
But one of the other suppliers offered me a deal where we could brown out on demand. You didn't offer me that. Why not? What do you talk about that? Is that good, bad?
There are very, very few types of customers that can potentially do that. I believe it's called, acronyms crazy in this business. I believe it's called Emergency Interruptible Load Service, EILS.
Is that voluntary or?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. The idea is the providers love it because most of the time it's only for large consumers of power. And manufacturing being one of those where potentially they could adapt or change the way that your operation works for a 60-day period. If it benefits you financially, obviously, and the provider would give you notice, hey, if you can reduce moving forward this many days, or just stop using and maybe use power on off-peak times where it's cheaper for us to buy it for you. So they definitely benefit, but they try to pass through some benefit to those types of customers. It's very rare, though, because if you look at things, again, with the big picture in mind, you have to stretch out those savings half the time in Texas, we're such a competitive market when it comes to providers competing for business. If you just do your due diligence, or you have, advisory on your side, then, you just got to get the cheapest, best, most affordable rate, but with the quality groups that will take care of you over the long term. You always win out better that way. And you don't have to, come to your shop at midnight and start, working.
So right now, half of my bill is my kilowatt rate. But then I've got this chart you sent me, and if I were to re-up right now, that my electrical weight would quadruple.
Yeah, this is kind of what we've been talking about, this year especially, but we saw it happening beginning last year, right around summer last year. Market just started, climbing, And this, again, we're talking about energy market prices in Texas. Obviously, everything corresponded. Natural gas prices started slowly climbing. We have monetary policy issues, and there's something to be said. I think for the last 4 or 5 years, have our energy prices been too low? I always say they have been, simply because you can't just have one side win all the time.
Right.
And,
business has to be win-win.
Well, I was going to say, free market is a beautiful thing, but it's when everyone has a little benefit there. It's, like a business deal. Everyone compromises. We meet in the middle. And, a lot of things had been in the customer's favor if they've been taking advantage of it. And that's where we came up with our residential service that was allowing that, and it still does to this day. It's always finding the cheapest prices in the market, no matter what the market's doing, if it's up now and when it comes down as well. Right now, providers really like what's going on. And, again, we're talking about basically a 200% increase on prices?
I'd say 400. That's huge.
And then in the last 2 years, yeah.
Yeah. How long's my contract run for?
You're in good shape. You are locked till 25, so you got 3 years left.
Wow. I need to sell electricity.
As of last month, you got 3 years left. So this provider is not going to like you for a long time because they're not going to be able to make a lot of money off of you.
Darn. Can I run extension cords around the neighborhood and sell power?
That's going to be your call. That's going to be totally. The neighbors will like you. But yeah, so an all-in average residential price. We use residential equivalency in Texas because you can take a large user and you can divide it by a specific number of a residential user, and you can get like one business that equates to maybe 10 households. So in Texas, we kind of view everything as a residential account. Just on numbers breakdown, but we always use that as like the baseline, because while I'm talking about a July 20 energy rate of around 9 cents, like you said, about half of that was the energy rate 2 years ago, and so about 4.5 cents makes sense. 2 years ago, we got you in the fours. So an all-in is around 8 or 9 cents 2 years ago this time, and today, if you look at the cheapest residential energy price, it's about 18.5 cents. I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. That's absolutely absurd. And, I think we'll see some good relief coming into the fall. However, there's not a lot of things fundamentally that are going to change. I think any relief we'll see will be from the stress from the providers being nervous on peak purchasing for their customers using a lot of power in the summer. So customers use less power in the spring. We call them the shoulder months, spring and the fall. I'm sorry, moving into the fall when they use less power, they'll have more relief, so you'll see more competitive offers come back online into the market.
Buy power in the spring and fall, is that what you're telling me?
That is traditionally what we've always preached, whether anyone uses us or not. And again, there's a big question on, what types of terms do we do? These off-peak terms, 15-month terms? Do we do a 32-month term, or do we stick on the calendar 12, 24, 36, 48? There are times in the market where some of those things make sense, but the biggest issue is towards the end of the term, timing your renewal.
Right.
A lot of people love it when they get a really front-end summer deal, a great, May, June, and they just signed a 2-year deal. Well, that thing's going to expire on the front of summer in 2 years, and then you're going to get slammed with renewal prices for that summer. And so it's good to stay early when you're reviewing renewal offers. So, for example, for you, hopefully you don't kick me to the curb here, but in 2025, I won't call you May 31st before your contract expires. I'm going to start sending you updates of the market probably around February and March, because we'll be coming out of winter, which is another somewhat of a peak period. in Texas.
There's a lot of subtle stuff that I really don't want to learn. That's why we're working with you, and that's why we have you on today.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to learn what you do because it seems very, very complicated. I just happy I know something maybe I can help with. So
That's why I say I know people. So let me tell you, the reason I renewed for as long as I did when we did it is this little chart right here. So that's natural gas prices,
right.
and they're way up now compared to And so, how directly does natural gas correlate with electricity?
In Texas, in a significant way. Early 2000s, when you had credit freeze, things like that, things tied a lot to the energy commodities markets, period, meaning oil, gas, other factors. We separated from the quote oil correlation very, very long ago because we're not using crude to generate power.
Right.
It's just such a weird misconception, but the market just lumps it all in as energy. Obviously in Texas, most of our Texas customers understand that we are, very, very blessed and fortunate that we have a lot of it. I don't even know if there's metrics we can truly put on it. And so therefore it's the backbone of our power generation, 70, 80%. Should it be more? Should it be less? That's up to the politicians to
That's
discuss.
a different debate. I'm just looking at trying to
That's right.
be a good steward of my company and
That's
get
right.
the right rates.
That's right.
But then, so you look at the graph though, and whoa, it's way up, right? Compared to when we locked in this contract. But if you look historically, it's still only about 2/3 as high as it was many years ago.
That's
so
right.
it could get worse, right?
Well, it could. I will say that with everyone else, I will say this is a 20-year snapshot of going high. This is the credit freeze where everything stopped, commodities exploded.
Right.
We come back down. We have a 10+ year period of insanely low nat gas prices in the 4 to 5 cent MMBTU range. When what was this, mid to late 2020, we were at $2.
I love this country.
We have so much supply, the price plummets. Now there's some issues with supply constraints, and now LNG's in a big boom. Liquefied natural gas, really and truly, the entire world needs it, wants it. We've got it. Texas specifically exports a lot of it, majority of it, and so now you've got the demand growing. So prices are coming up some, which is a good thing. But then you have some other let's call pressures that are kind of helping manipulate that price back up. But yes, overall, I think you could look at them just eyeballing right around $6 MMBTU. I'd say that's a little high, but it's still a pretty healthy number in the last 20 years average. $4 to $5 is usually where everyone can play. And I think we'll be back to that level. I can't say when, but that is typically what will help prices come down when it comes to electricity prices too. We're always going to have strong demand in Texas. It's not stopping anytime soon. So we've got to have supply.
Let's talk about Texas. I pulled this chart out, and I was disappointed. I thought Texas would win, but I'm looking at this chart. We're not necessarily the lowest energy state, are we? Lowest price. I'm looking at Louisiana. They're lower than us. I don't know where I got that. I think that's a government.
What? Oh.
Government part.
I just heard a bad word.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. So most of these markets that are, quote, the lowest energy prices across the country
Right.
are regulated markets. Now that definitely...
What? You're saying deregulation raised our prices?
Well, again, it depends on who the source of truth is. In this case, you kind of touched on it in the beginning.
.gov.
So at least there's some truth here that California is the highest, New York
Yep.
is the highest. These markets have a lot of challenges. You got a lot of crossover, but traditionally and historically, Texas and other dereg markets that manage their deregulation and educate their consumers the right way, deregulation is the only way to win in power prices, and power purchasing. Now, again, it's down to consumer responsibility, whether you're a homeowner or a business owner. If you don't do anything about it and you just say, well, I love this one provider because my lights stay on, that has nothing to do with it. And that is just the most ridiculous. Believe it or not, it's a tactic that's worked for a very long time because you have some providers that were here day one, and so people think like they're HLMP, and they're not. there's zero, legally speaking, there is nothing they can do to keep your power on versus your next door neighbor, other than the infrastructure, which is the utility responsibility. So anyways, my point here is that, me personally, I'm a power nerd, I have always had the cheapest energy rates, right? And I look at my neighbors, I'm like, man, but they're happy as a clam because they have no clue. And
Yeah,
so,
but I mean, if I allowed my rates to quadruple, like that other graph showed, that's $400,000 a year more. That'll leave a mark.
that's right. And the way this is all kind of shaking out is there's more money to go around now too. So we'll see how that works. When you have more money out there in the market, prices go up. This is just what happens. But if you look at all the prices in general, for the Texas example you just said, all of these states' power prices have boomed. This is from February 2022.
Right. I was looking for just the whole country because
No.
I actually thought we had the lowest prices.
I love it. Well, yeah, if you looked at this from 2020,
Yeah.
we would absolutely
You would
have
have.
the cheapest prices.
Okay.
This is good for historical purposes and perspective. I mean, we're talking, what is that? 5 months? 5 months ago.
Yeah. So move to Texas. That's one of the advantages.
Move to Texas. Don't be naive. Ask for help if you need it.
Right.
You're going to be in good shape.
Are we ever going to see under 5 cents per kilowatt hour again?
Again, no crystal ball. I have a hard time believing that because even though I was happy to get my customers these smoking deals similar to yours, I've run an energy provider before, twice in my lifetime. I feel very confident. I know both sides of the business very well and how they should be working together. And it's not sustainable to keep prices that low.
No, I agree.
I
Everybody's got to win.
I absolutely will go to the grave, not anytime soon, but those prices were too low and on purpose. So we'll just leave it at that.
On purpose. Darn. Okay, well.
But hey, you win, right? Because you had some help.
We locked it in.
Because you had some help.
Yeah, locked it in for several more years.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What happened during the ice storm? You got any insider information? Any comments?
Well, your typical things happen, right? Catastrophic, minor situations. You have power lines freezing, snapping, breaking. But typically when you have a prevalent supply, most of the time what happens, if there is a repair can't be done in a certain section or region of the state, they just redistribute the power through other lines.
Right. It flows both ways.
It flows both ways, and that's the grid operator. That's ERCOT. And a lot of this is digitized, automated, but there's still human involvement in these emergency situations to make sure it stays online. And this is where you get your pass-through cost increase because your congestion charges through other lines will increase because there are some power lines that didn't break, and they just got overloaded with a bunch of load that's got to get distributed. So they have their formulas and their scientists that are probably chewing through the numbers to make sure there's sense of all that. So that normally happens. But the perfect storm here, unfortunately, pun intended, is there wasn't enough supply to redistribute.
Well, the story I heard that was the most annoying was that they didn't prioritize power use properly, so that the plants that were producing the natural gas froze, which stopped the generators. And so that seems like horrible planning and wrong prioritization.
Humans.
Was that a big thing, or is that just a new headline thing?
No, look, is there a way we can prove it all? No, because I'm not going out there to look at these plants if they're frozen over. I think a lot of it is absolutely true. When you have power plants that are not on, they will freeze over. And again, the incentivized situations now is they will be on.
Good.
Whether we need them or not. The whole problem is there was a game of chicken. For the longest time, those generators were saying, you need to incentivize us. We can weatherize. We can stay on. We can stay readily available. But you're incentivizing other industries to build generation.
I see.
And unfortunately, during different times of the year, it's just facts. We cannot generate power through these other avenues, even though they're wonderful supplemental. In the summertime, solar is amazing for Texas because we got a ton of sun, right?
Right.
So
more than we need,
as we know right now. But unfortunately, I think I read this 2 days ago, wind usually is around 20-30% of our supply overall on a 12
which
month.
is huge compared to other states.
It is. But guess what? 10 years ago, it was like 2%, 3%. So we've incentivized industries, and that's okay.
Right.
But about 4 days ago, it was only 6% of our gen for
Darn
the
it.
day. The wind wasn't blowing. Who can someone affect that? I can't. Can you?
Can't we make a law or something?
Right. I think we can have someone out there just wafting a big fan. So the point here is they all need to play together. They all need to have their kumbaya. Everyone knows where they are and where they stand, and the supplement is a beautiful thing because we have the space, the land, and the market conditions where everyone can win. You just can't push one over the other. You just have to, in my opinion, we have to do things that make sense. In certain markets, they don't have the kind of nat gas we have, so they maybe have to look at it other ways. There are markets that have to buy power from other states over state lines because they can't generate enough. So every state has to do their thing. Again, I hate it because a lot of bad things happen, like sad things happen.
People died.
People died, and that should never happen in a responsible, state government, quite honestly. And I think we have to take that as a learning curve. And I think, the way it's bounced back, and of course media is going to pounce on it as long as they can, as maybe they should. But I feel very confident because I know for 15 years how this market has evolved and how it has advanced to help the customer, to the consumer. The reliability, believe it or not, I know it's weird, it's improved in a huge way. Power goes off, it comes back on in 10 minutes sometimes. The old days, it'd be 3 days. So,
Been there.
But no one wants to remember the history. Everybody just wants to know what's happening to them right now. That's normal. I mean, that's just normal human behavior. However, I try to always have a wider lens when I'm kind of looking at situations, and so hopefully that helps. I don't know.
Let's talk about. Let's see if you want to be provocative today. So
Have I not been already?
Well, yeah. Well, I'm pushing the limits. So grids are stressed. Particularly in California, the grids are overstressed, and I don't know how much you can say that's the case here. But then, as we add more Bitcoin mining and electric cars, what's that going to do to the grid? Is this an issue?
Yeah, well, obviously it is, and I think the reason that the wink we're inviting these players to Texas is because we know we're going to be able to handle the supply, the demand. We'll generate more supply.
Well, the demand is one thing. I'm talking about the grid itself. So,
Yeah.
so we're okay. You're not worried.
I feel totally. I mean, hopefully everything prior to what we've been talking about, it kind of explains. At least my opinion is when we see the demand coming, capitalism should take over. We should build more. We should build more supply, and if not, pull it out of the ground faster. Right now, gas comes from the ground, and we have regions of Texas that aren't populated. We have, very safe ways that we do things. Bad things always happen, but we have to be able to address them quickly and move on, because we have a very, very fast moving and fast growing state. I won't give a lot of credit to the higher ups there. I just think it's the state where we're so fortunate to be in a state that has beautiful mountainous deserts. We have amazing rolling hills. We have coastal, amazing, sea life, yeah, fishing, and beach life and things like that. We have everything here.
And a government that supports the free market system.
Well, yeah, and not to mention the tax savings getting these sports teams here, and the players and everyone typically tries to retire here or move here or play here. So if we're talking sports.
I was born here, but I'm
Yep.
glad I was.
Yep, same here.
Hey, well, so, like I said, I made 13 of the 12 mistakes negotiating my contracts in the past. What's the biggest one, or is there one you want to touch on that we didn't, or any words of advice to some poor fellow that's negotiating a contract right now other than
Yeah, it's tough right now. I think we were talking about before. It's just really hard right now because prices are high, and you have the gamblers that want to do a short-term, extremely high-priced contract just because maybe they think the market's going to tank off.
But you're telling me that
12 months.
short-term versus long-term can be twice the number.
Yes, the front end is extremely high, but when we're saying long-term, we're saying 3, 4, 5 years out. We have gamblers, unfortunately, they want to take the short-term 12-month or, some cases 15-month contract because they think in 18 months it's just going to tank off the back. And unfortunately, fundamentally, I don't think that can happen.
I'm not going for it.
It's going to be a slow improvement, let's call it a repair of our market. I do think it's inevitable. However, again, it's hard to tell. I mean, so many crazy things happen. But I think we have a lot of good foundational pieces in place in Texas to where over time we're going to find a stable level of healthy energy prices, wholesale, retail. everyone else can come and play and throw their new industry or avenue of demand response, reduce your usage, help customers reduce usage. Hey, that stuff helps, but you can't you can't force people to do that. And I think there will be certain consumers that will love that tool in the tool belt. And then you'll have the other, piece of that. That's the demand side, reducing demand if you want. Then you'll have the other side of, we're going to continue building more supply. We'll have more solar come in. We'll have a little bit more wind. We're going to have plenty of nat gas. I mean, again, if they play together and they play together nicely, we're going to be bright yellow again as the cheapest price.
Good.
And again, talk to me in 6 more months. This will change. So yeah, no, just be careful if you're going it alone. If you need help, let people help, even if you don't take their advice.
You'll learn something.
That's right.
Well, I have a friend. He actually makes a living reading people's telephone bills, because if you look at large commercial telephone bills, if you hand him one, we probably ought to get him on a podcast. But if you hand him a large, not your residential, but a commercial, a city, a hospital's bill, he can find amazing errors and places to save money.
That's right.
And I've always harassed him. I said, why don't you do this on electric bills? In effect, that's what you do. You just don't charge for it.
I don't charge for it. So that's bill savings or bill auditing. That used to be a big thing.
Well, there were people that did that.
There were groups, and there's still a few. I will say the billing companies and the billing technology, again, has advanced where it's a little bit, actually it's a lot better and more accurate. And if and when there are errors, we catch them all the time for our residential customers. We're very fortunate. We get to see thousands of bills for our customers before they get them. So we tell the provider beforehand, hey, there's an extra zero.
Yeah.
Or why are we seeing this crazy usage, 10,000 kilowatt hours for this home that has traditionally used 2,000? Oh gosh, they go back, do a quick check. We had a huge billing glitch. They got to cancel their 30,000 bills they had in the batch, and they got to rebill them. So we saved them a lot of time and money and headache too. And our customers never even got that bill because we intercepted it and caught it.
Saved you a lot of phone calls, didn't it?
So, but to the provider's credit, they are able to correct these things faster because of technology. Mm-hmm. So that's a big, again, thing that we think that consumers and providers and everyone, if technology is used the right way, everyone helps. And everyone can win as well. I mean, again, this is a big part of the Real Simple Energy proposition is we're using a lot of technology to help automate their power buying for their home. The billing process is cleaner, and again, we try to bring balance. Star Wars reference. We try to bring balance to the force, right? Balance to the market, helping both sides have a pleasant experience in this, because there's always the mentality the customers hate the provider, and the provider wants to pounce on the customer because they don't think they're going to stay long term. And we try to be the transparent mouthpiece of, this is what it is. We know what we're doing. You can't try any tricks, and you can't, complain. We're giving y'all the best deals, and we're helping both sides. So,
and you're also telling us where the potential gotchas are.
Oh, always.
Which is huge.
Always.
Huge. Ask anybody that got the huge bill after last year's
That's
freeze.
Right. Yep.
So, and you pointed out several things to me about potentials, and and it's all about risk tolerance. Yep. And a couple of them I said I wasn't worried, and a couple of them I said, darn it, I was unaware. So
right. That's right.
Okay, what was that phrase you said? Real Simple Energy?
Real Simple Energy.
Is that a phrase or is that a company?
No. RealSimpleEnergy.com is our residential service. Customers can go online, get the cheapest energy quote for their home or rental home. Automatically, it scrapes daily data on publicly available plans, and we do have some off-market plans we've negotiated with quality providers on exclusive basis, where in certain times, if you're a small user, big user, average user, it might be 2 to 3 mils, third decimal point, cheaper than the publicly available cheapest price. And to your point, our algorithm is chewing through all the tricky plans. So you can come to us and tell us there's a 12-cent energy rate for your home. It's actually going to end up being about 19 or 20 cents, and we're showing you 18s. So you never have to worry about it again for your home. We charge a small subscription fee. There's no contract for our service. We'll contract you with providers for great deals, and we manage your renewal process. We manage your billing process. We manage for bill accuracy, for on-time bill payment. We actually pay your bill prior to taking your payment. So we're actually taking a lot of risk for our customers to make sure everyone is happy. They can sleep at night and go focus on
How do you sleep?
things that are more important. It was tough in the beginning, but we proved out the value prop. Again, people, they want to trust, number one. Number two, they want results. And number three, they just don't want to worry about this stuff.
They don't want
anymore.
surprises.
That's right. No surprises.
I mentioned to my wife that you're coming on the podcast today, and she commented that how good a job you're doing at our home also. So
Well, thank you.
That another attaboy.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the trust. Again, I mean, we know this for some reason. I found this out a long time ago. The residential power bill is so private. People treat it like it's their Social Security card.
I don't get it.
Very odd. It just has maybe it's just their address. They don't want to know where we live. Well, the provider knows where you live. They have your bill.
Indeed.
I was like, we're not trying to drive by to people and like hand out, gift baskets or anything like that. But we need certain information to help you, to find out how you use power, to place you in the better plan. The provider doesn't care if you are confused on their power plan. They're putting out plans that's going to attract the customer they need to monetize the best that they can. If it comes off tricky, most of the cases, they're like, so be it. Again, we created this service because there was a huge need for it. Woody from the Chronicle saw that. And then obviously because of my commercial background, you and I hit it off even further because I do this for a living and I've done it for a very long time and I do it with my eyes closed. And I enjoy it because I always wanted to be in some type of industry where I could at least help people, not to be cheesy, but it helps me sleep at night. It truly does. And, I kind of try to walk the walk and,
Well, how long have we been with you now? A couple of years, right?
Right. I think for your home over a year, and then obviously here was 2020 or 2021.
Okay, so yeah, a couple of years. So Woody was right, and I have evidence. So is that how you want people to contact you? Is through the website, or how do we do this?
They can always find me there. You can chat my team. But either way, you can email me, call me. My email is pparis@realsimpleenergy.com. It's a very long email. pparas@realsimpleenergy.com. Heck, call me up, 281-701-8735.
Is that the office?
No, that's straight to my hip.
Oh, that's your cell phone. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
But not at midnight.
Okay.
I got to sleep.
All right. This has been huge. Like I said, it's been very helpful to us. You've saved us tens of thousands of dollars, allowed me to sleep better. You didn't mess anything up like the last provider, like they did the sales tax. So you get my deep appreciation for all you've done. Is there anything else you'd like to tell our audience today?
No, I'm just happy to be here. Thanks. I'm glad we could help. Again, that's it. I mean, it's silly, but I mean that's what we like to hear.
This is one of the big bills that we, one of the big checks we write every year. So it's huge, and I thought it would benefit other manufacturers, other Texans, to put you on. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. And like I said, I mean, if there's just questions, I can answer them. We don't charge silly questions. I mean, a lot of groups are, want to get into, big, deep agreements. We're just happy to help. Hey, send us a bill. We'll say, this is a good bill. Good job.
Right.
Hey, this is terrible. You may want to look at it. If you want our help, let us know.
I know you took my call right after the freeze. I said, am I going to be one of those? She said, no, you're good.
No.
So.
Oh, you weren't the only one.
Yeah.
We had, I mean, again, sad stuff. It can be avoided. A lot of it, especially our customers, won't have to deal with issues like that, whether there's a blowout this summer, for whatever reason.
It still happen.
Right. It's not just about cold. It's not just about hot. I mean, just catastrophic stuff, man. I mean, this is the world.
Everything's cyclical.
Yeah, you cannot predict what's going to happen tomorrow. You can just be prepared and just, try to feel confident about it. So
we'll see if we can get you back on in a year. We'll see how the energy industry's doing.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I'd be curious to see too.
We'll talk to you then.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan.